Hello, and welcome to this presentation, which focuses on one of the questions posed in the public consultation. I will briefly present about what counts for meeting a target. What counts for reaching a target is ultimately dependent on how the pair indicator scenario is constructed. This can be quite nuanced, but I will try to clarify how it works under current proposed methods, in particular, the well-to-wheel method. I will focus on four main areas: carbon capture and storage, removals in energy value chain, removals outside the energy value chain, and how to count energy. First, let's talk about the accounting of carbon capture and storage. The first case is direct abatement of CO2 or applying CCS to your own emissions. This is currently accounted in the indicator as a reduced Scope 1 emission. In most scenarios, it is not possible to differentiate what amounts of CCS are to be done in the oil and gas value chain. But it may be possible to do it for an expanded energy sector that also covers electricity. As the scenario variable is calculated on a net emissions basis, this is, considering CCS as non-emissions to the atmosphere, CCS should be counted as an effective mitigation measure when done within the company boundary. The second case related to CCS respects to indirect abatement of CCS. So when CCS is implemented by a client of an oil and gas company. This is currently not counted in the indicator to reduce Scope 3 use-sold products emissions due to unclear rules. If CCS is done by the client within the client's company boundary, this implies a kind of transfer of a CO2 emissions to permanent storage. The most substantial part of CCS in scenarios happen within the energy sector, for example in gas power, which for some time will likely take place both within the assets of the present day oil and gas companies and their clients. We expect that in the future, as rules become clearer on CCS and the accounting of Scope 3 user-sold products, this part might be able to be counted as mitigation activity for Scope 3 user-sold products emissions. The second topic relates to accounting of removals within the energy value chain. We start with indirect removals within the energy value chain. Indirect removals are not counted as its rules are currently unclear and is also unlikely to play a significant role in decreasing the carbon intensity of energy supplied at least until the 2040s. However, negative emissions in the power sector are counted in the scenario for the calculation of energy sector net emissions. PECs within the power sector is a contentious issue between different stakeholders, and its use in the scenarios has been minimized, namely by setting limits to sustainable bioenergy production. The second topic relates to direct removals, and in this case, direct removals in biorefineries, which is one of the pathways for decarbonization of the refinery sector. Direct removals. Direct removals are unlikely to happen in the oil and gas sector outside the biorefineries. In an expanded energy sector, there are, according to certain scenarios, expectation for very large removals within the power sector by applying CCS to bioenergy, PECs. Direct removals within a biorefinery process are counted, but unlikely to play a significant role in terms of decarbonization for a significant number of companies. Direct removals from power are unlikely to play a significant role until the 2040s at least. Accounting of removals outside of the energy value chain. Indirect direct carbon removals through afforestation or reforestation. These removals are not counted. Afforestation and reforestation removals happen outside the energy sector. It was agreed that these removals would not be allocated to the energy sector in a scenario variable. If they were allocated to the energy sector, they would decrease further the energy sector net emissions, and the corresponding net carbon intensity of energy would be brought further down, making the scenario more ambitious. This would also make the boundary between the sectors murkier and spark a debate about the allocation of removals to different sectors. Investments in nature-based solutions. These investments, producing either removals or certified emissions reductions or other instruments, are not counted towards the target. There are different types of nature-based solutions. While other very important benefits can be delivered by these investments, such as adaptation, disaster risk reduction, creation of green infrastructure, resilience, etc. For the purpose of this methodology, ecosystem-based mitigation is the focus. Nature-based solutions deliver multiple sustainability goals and have key advantages over other carbon dioxide removal options, namely their cost effectiveness and the fact that they can be implemented today. They also have some drawbacks, like the impermanence of the removals. Nature-based solutions typically occur outside the energy system, within the land or ocean systems, and are poorly represented in climate mitigation scenarios. For this reason, while we recognize the importance of oil, gas, and integrated energy companies financing the delivery of nature-based solutions, the mitigation outcomes of these investments are not considered within the pair indicator scenario and should not be used for purpose of achieving a science-based target as proposed in the current guidance and in the recently launched Foundations for Science-Based Net Zero Target Setting in the Corporate Sector. Where and how energy should be counted. Should energy delivered by companies be counted as primary, secondary, or final energy? The technical working group agreed to count this as secondary energy, even if this is not readily available in all scenarios. And how to account for electricity, namely, if corrections should be made to acknowledge the substitution potential of fossil fuels for electricity, so accounted by the so-called partial substitution method. The technical working group decided to count for electricity using the partial substitution method, which requires a similar transformation of the electricity data at the scenario level. There is a video that focuses more in detail on these aspects related to energy accounting. Namely, check the video related to the well-to-wheel methodology. Finally, we welcome your views on these topics about what counts and how it should be counted for target compliance purpose. We also have similar recordings for other consultation questions. Please check them out. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in this public consultation.